I'm Claire, 29, and my ex-husband was smiling at the judge like he'd already won the lottery. She's just a housewife, Your Honor, Ethan said with that practiced confidence that once made me fall in love with him. Never contributed anything meaningful to our business. He adjusted his tie like he was closing $1 million deal. It was always me who took care of everything. I kept my hand steady on the leather folder in my lap, the same folder that was about to wipe that smug expression right off his face. 3 years of his lies documented with the patience of someone who learned the hard way that pretty words don't pay the bills. He had no idea what was coming, and honestly, that was the best part. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt underestimated by someone who claimed to love you. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Let me take you back to where this whole mess started, because trust me, it's not where you think. This story doesn't begin with a cheating husband or a nasty divorce. It begins with a 24-year-old girl standing in a lawyer's office, inheriting more money than she'd ever seen in her life. My grandmother, Eleanor Morrison, had always been the black sheep of our family. While everyone else played it safe with savings accounts and conservative investments, Grandma Ellie put her money into real estate, startups, and what my father called risky nonsense. Turns out, risky nonsense has a way of paying off when you're smart about it. Miss Morrison, the estate attorney said, sliding capers across his mahogany desk, your grandmother's portfolio is valued at approximately $3 million. $3 million. I sat there trying to process numbers that felt more fictional than real. My parents had spent my entire childhood complaining about money, clipping coupons, and making me feel guilty for wanting anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. And here was Grandma Ellie, quietly building a fortune while living in her modest 2-bedroom house with a garden full of wildflowers. She left specific instructions, the attorney continued, that this inheritance is to be used for your independence and happiness, not to supplement anyone else's lifestyle. Even from beyond the grave, Grandma Ellie was looking out for me. Smart woman. Too bad I wasn't quite smart enough to heed her warning about certain charming men who would come into my life later. With Grandma Ellie's inheritance burning a hole in my bank account, I did what any sensible 24-year-old would do. I started a business. Interior design had always been my passion, the thing I was actually good at, while everyone else in my family excelled at making me feel inadequate about my choices. I invested $300,000 into Claire Morrison Design, setting up a proper LLC, renting studio space in the Arts District, and building a portfolio that showcased exactly the kind of high-end work I wanted to attract. No family money to fall back on if things went wrong. Well, technically there was, but I was determined to make this work on its own merit. The business took off faster than I expected. Turns out having actual capital to invest in quality marketing and professional presentation makes a difference. Who knew? Within 6 months, I was booking clients with 7-figure renovation budgets. Within a year, I was turning people away. By year 2, Claire Morrison Design was featured in Architectural Digest. By year 3, I had a 6-month waiting list and was seriously considering expanding. That's when I met Ethan. It was at a charity gala, one of those events where successful people go to see and be seen while writing tax-deductible checks. I was there representing my work, showcasing a mansion renovation that had just been completed for a tech CEO's wife, the kind of project that makes other designers hate you just a little bit. Ethan approached me during cocktail hour, tall and confident in that expensive suit way that suggests family money and good breeding. Claire Morrison, he said, extending his hand. I've been admiring your work all evening. Which piece, I asked, because honestly, I had 3 different projects on display. All of it, but especially the way you handled the natural lighting in the Ashford estate. Most designers would have just thrown money at bigger windows. He actually understood my work. In a room full of people who saw interior design as expensive furniture arrangement, here was someone who understood the technical artistry involved. I was impressed, and apparently a little stupid. Ethan Lawson, he said, that smile doing things to my common sense that should have come with the warning label. What do you do, Ethan Lawson? Consulting, business development, market analysis, strategic planning, the boring stuff that keeps the creative people in business. The boring stuff that keeps creative people in business. I should have paid more attention to that phrase, should have asked more questions, should have wondered why a successful consultant was spending his Friday night at a charity gala instead of working on whatever important business development project was surely demanding his attention. But hindsight is 20/20, and charm is a powerful drug when administered by someone who knows exactly how to use it. Dating Ethan felt like being upgraded to first class when you've been flying coach your whole life. He knew the best restaurants, had connections everywhere, and treated me like I was the most fascinating woman he'd ever met. After years of being dismissed by family members who thought my career was cute, being with someone who seemed genuinely impressed by my success was intoxicating. "You're incredible," he'd say, watching me work late into the evening on design concepts. "The way your mind works, the vision you have, it's like watching an artist create magic." I should have noticed that he said this while lounging on my office couch, drinking wine I'd paid for in the studio I'd rented with my own money. But when someone tells you everything you've always wanted to hear, you tend to overlook the details that don't fit the fantasy. Our relationship moved fast. Within 6 months, we were practically living together. Within the year, he was attending client meetings with me, charming potential customers with that easy confidence that made everyone instantly like him. I started introducing him as my business partner at networking events, which seemed natural since he was always there, always contributing to conversations about market trends and client psychology. "You two make such a great team," clients would say, and I'd beam with pride. Finally, someone who understood my work well enough to support it properly. Someone who could handle the business side while I focused on the creative aspects I loved. The proposal happened at the site of my biggest project to date, a complete renovation of a historic mansion that had been featured on the cover of 3 different design magazines. He'd arranged for champagne and roses in the main ballroom with all our friends and family hidden behind the grand staircase. "Claire," he said, dropping to one knee in front of the marble fireplace I'd spent 6 months sourcing, "you've shown me what it means to build something beautiful. Will you build a life with me?" Of course I said yes. When someone proposes in the middle of your greatest professional achievement, it feels like the universe confirming that everything is falling into place exactly as it should. The wedding was perfect, small, elegant, held in the garden of one of my completed projects because Ethan said he wanted to be surrounded by my success when we started our new life together. Even my usually critical family seemed impressed by his charm and obvious devotion to my career. "You found a good one," my mother whispered during the reception. "He really understands how to support your little business." My little business. Even on my wedding day, even surrounded by evidence of my success, it was still diminished to hobby status. But I had Ethan now. Someone who saw my work for what it really was. Someone who would never let anyone minimize my achievements. Or so I thought. The first crack in the facade appeared about 6 months after the wedding, during what should have been a routine business meeting. Margaret Ashworth, the wife of a pharmaceutical executive, was considering a complete renovation of their estate. The kind of project that could single-handedly fund my expansion plans. "Mr. Lawson," she said, addressing Ethan directly, despite the fact that I was the one who designed her friend's award-winning kitchen renovation. "I'm so impressed by your portfolio. The work you did on the Sterling residence was absolutely magnificent." I started to correct her. The Sterling residence was entirely my design, my vision, my 3 months of 16-hour days bringing their impossible requirements to life. But Ethan's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. "We're so proud of that project," he said smoothly. "Claire and I work very closely together on all our designs." Our designs, not my designs. Our designs. After Margaret left with promises to call within the week, I confronted him in the parking lot. "Why didn't you correct her?" "About what?" He seemed genuinely confused. "She thinks you designed the Sterling house." Claire, honey, does it really matter who gets credit as long as we get the contract? We're married now. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. The math on that equation seemed a little uneven, considering I was the one who had built the reputation, developed the skills, and invested the inheritance money that made our current lifestyle possible. But I let it slide. Marriage is about compromise, right? About supporting each other's success, even when the recognition gets a little blurred. The second crack appeared when I discovered he'd been using our business credit card for personal expenses. Nothing dramatic. Dinners with friends, golf games, a weekend trip to Vegas that he described as networking. Ethan, these charges aren't business expenses. Sure they are. I met 3 potential clients at that restaurant, discussed our services with 2 guys at the golf course, and the Vegas trip was a conference on luxury market trends. What conference? It was more of an informal networking situation. You know how these things work. I didn't actually, but I was learning that questioning Ethan's business decisions somehow always made me sound like the naive wife who didn't understand how real business networking functioned. The third crack was the biggest one, though I didn't recognize it at the time. We were at a dinner party thrown by one of my clients, surrounded by successful people discussing their various business ventures, when someone asked Ethan about his background. Oh, I'm in business development. I specialize in taking creative enterprises to the next level. Market analysis, strategic planning, client acquisition. The foundation work that turns artistic vision into profitable business. How interesting. What's your biggest success story? Ethan smiled and gestured toward me. Well, when I met Claire, she had this charming little design hobby. Sweet residential projects, very artistic, but no real business structure. We've grown it into a serious commercial enterprise. Charming little design hobby. The business that was already generating 6 figures annually when I met him had been reduced to a hobby that he somehow transformed into success through his superior business acumen. I excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror, trying to understand why I felt so angry. He was proud of our success. That was good, right? He was supporting my career, helping it grow. That was what I wanted, wasn't it? So why did it feel like something was being stolen from me? One conversation at a time. The slow erosion of my professional identity continued so gradually that I almost didn't notice it happening. Ethan started attending client meetings without me, explaining that he could handle the initial consultations while I focused on the creative work. When I protested, he pointed out how much more efficient it was. Why should you waste time on sales pitches when you could be designing? You're the artist, Claire. I'm the business guy. It's the perfect partnership. Except the perfect partnership seemed to involve my name disappearing from business cards, my signature being replaced by his on contracts, and my design concepts being presented as a collaborative effort between the Lawsons. The breaking point came during a consultation for what would have been my biggest client to date, a tech billionaire's wife who wanted to renovate their entire compound in the hills. I'd spent weeks developing preliminary concepts, researching materials, creating mood boards that captured her vision of understated luxury with environmental consciousness. I arrived at the meeting to find Ethan already seated in the conference room with Mrs. Chen, my design boards arranged on the table in front of him. Claire, perfect timing, he said without getting up. I was just explaining our design philosophy to Mrs. Chen. Our design philosophy. The design philosophy I developed over years of study, practice, and refinement was apparently something we'd created together. These concepts are extraordinary, Mrs. Chen said, examining my work. Mr. Lawson, your vision for sustainable luxury is exactly what we've been looking for. Thank you, Ethan replied. My wife assists with some of the technical details, but the overall creative direction comes from our collaborative process. I assist with technical details. Technical details like creating every single element of the design she was praising. After Mrs. Chen left with promises to move forward with our proposal, I confronted Ethan in the parking lot. What was that? What do you mean? You presented my work as your design philosophy. Claire, we're married. It's not your work or my work, it's our work. You didn't design any of it. You don't even know the difference between sustainable materials and eco-friendly finishes. I know how to sell the vision, which is just as important as creating it. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how my successful business had somehow become our business, while my individual contributions had been reduced to technical assistance. When had I agreed to this arrangement? When had my name stopped being the primary one associated with work I'd created entirely on my own? More importantly, when had I become too afraid of seeming ungrateful or possessive to defend my own professional identity? The next morning, I called my business attorney. Marcus had helped me set up the LLC when I first started the company, and he'd handled the legal work when Ethan and I got married. If anyone could help me understand how to protect my interests without destroying my marriage, it would be him. Marcus, I need to ask you about something. What's on your mind, Claire? Hypothetically, if my husband wanted to become an official partner in my business, what would that process look like? Long pause. Claire, is this purely hypothetical? For now. Well, it would require amending your LLC operating agreement, transferring ownership percentages, and documenting as capital contribution or sweat equity investment. Why? How would you document sweat equity? Detailed records of contributions, time investment, business development activities that directly resulted in increased revenue. It's actually quite difficult to prove unless you've been maintaining extensive documentation. Extensive documentation. I thought about all the client meetings Ethan had attended, all the networking events where he represented our business, all the times he'd claimed credit for growth that had actually resulted from my design work and professional reputation. What documentation exists of his actual contributions versus his claimed contributions? Marcus, I think I need to schedule a meeting. That appointment would change everything. Though I didn't know it yet. Sometimes the most important decisions feel like small administrative tasks until you look back and realize they were the moment everything shifted. You started fighting for your own life. Marcus scheduled our meeting for the following Friday, giving me a week to think about what I really wanted to talk about. On the surface, it seemed simple. Understand the legal process for adding a business partner. But underneath, I was struggling with deeper questions. Had Ethan actually helped grow my business, or had he just been around while I did all the work? Was I being ungrateful for resenting his growing involvement, or was something being taken from me without my permission? That week became a time of observation. I started paying close attention to what Ethan actually did during his business development activities and wrote down his real contributions versus the ones he claimed. On Tuesday, Ethan went to lunch with a potential client, while I worked on design concepts for 3 projects. When he came back, he told me the client was very interested and would definitely move forward. But when I called the client that evening, I learned Ethan had spent most of the lunch talking about his golf game and hadn't even shown our portfolio. On Wednesday, Ethan said he was working on a marketing strategy for our expansion. I found him in his office playing online poker with the half-written email open on his screen. When I asked how it was going, he said he was making networking contacts on the poker site. On Thursday, he went to a networking event and promised to bring back valuable referrals. He came home drunk at midnight with business cards from 3 bars and no actual business contacts. By Friday, everything was clear. When I sat across from Marcus in his downtown office, I realized I wasn't there to learn about partnership agreements. I was there to learn how to protect my business from someone who was slowly taking it. "Claire," Marcus said gently, "you seem upset. What's really going on?" I told him everything. The erosion of my professional identity, the meetings where Ethan took credit for my work, the business expenses that weren't business expenses, and the growing feeling that my marriage was turning into a hostile takeover. "Has he asked you to sign anything?" Marcus asked. "Not yet, but he's hinting about making things official legally." "Good. Don't sign anything until I review it." "Marcus, am I being paranoid? Maybe this is how marriage works in business. Maybe I'm overthinking." He leaned back, choosing his words carefully. "Claire, you built this entire business yourself before you met Ethan. Your revenue grew because of your skill, your reputation, your client relationships. From what you've described, his contributions have been minimal." "But he's my husband. Shouldn't I want to share success with him?" "Sharing success is different from giving away ownership. If someone else slowly took credit for your work, claimed partnership without investment, and positioned themselves to take half of what you built, what would you call that?" I knew the word. I just wasn't ready to use it from my husband. "What should I do?" "Document everything. Every meeting, every client interaction, every expense, every claim he makes. If he asks for partnership papers, you'll need proof of what he actually contributed." "How do I record conversations legally?" "In this state, you can record conversations as long as one person consents, meaning you." Recording my own husband made my stomach turn, but losing everything I built made it turn even more. "Marcus, if this goes badly, how ugly can this get?" "Very ugly, Claire. Very ugly." I left with the small digital recorder and the beginning of a plan I hoped I'd never need. The device was tiny, the size of a USB stick, and could record hours of clear audio. I told myself it was just a precaution, but deep down, I knew I was preparing for a war I could feel coming. The first recording happened by accident. I had left the device in my purse during dinner, and it captured Ethan on the phone with someone named David. "She's completely clueless, still thinks this is a marriage, not a business arrangement, makes everything easier." When I returned to the table, he acted like the perfect husband again, but the recorder had captured something else, a man treating our marriage like a strategic acquisition. Over the next few weeks, the recordings revealed his real thoughts. The beauty of it is, she's already done all the hard work, built the reputation, client base, systems. All I have to do is position myself as the brains behind the operation. "What if she objects?" the other man asked. "Object to what? We're married. What's hers is mine, and she's not confrontational." Not confrontational. I almost laughed when I heard that. Ethan had confused kindness for weakness, his biggest mistake. The worst recording came after a client dinner where Ethan introduced himself as the founder and creative director of Claire Morrison Design. I sat there speechless as he took credit for my work, introducing me as his talented assistant. That night, drunk and talkative, he said, "Claire, you should thank me." "For what?" I asked, the recorder running quietly on my nightstand. "For turning your little hobby into a real business. When I met you, it was just a cute side project. Now look at it." "The business was already successful, Ethan. Successful for a hobby, maybe, but scaling it, that takes business expertise, market positioning, client psychology, networking. That's not art, that's business, and business is what I do." "What exactly have you contributed?" I asked. Claire, sweetheart, you're an artist. Artists don't understand markets or client acquisition. You make things pretty. Pretty doesn't pay the bills without business development. 3 years of architectural study, 5 years of professional experience, and a seven-figure business reduced to making things pretty? So you think you deserve ownership because you understand business and I don't? Our company, Claire. And yes, the person who turned it into a real enterprise deserves recognition. He kept talking. The recording captured everything. Every delusion, every plan to take ownership of a business he hadn't built. By the time he passed out, I had enough evidence to end the marriage and save my business. But I wasn't ready yet. A small part of me hoped the man I married still existed underneath this stranger planning a takeover. That hope would die completely in the next few months. But the recorder captured everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every sign of who Ethan had really become. The final phase of gathering evidence started when Ethan got sloppy. Success had made him confident, and confidence made him careless. He stopped pretending to work on real business development and began openly using my company's resources for his own side ventures. I'm exploring some investment opportunities, he announced casually one morning over coffee. What kind of investments? Diversification strategies, real estate development, maybe some tech startups. We need a bigger picture. Can't just keep decorating houses. Decorating houses. My award-winning commercial projects and multi-million-dollar residential designs were now decorating houses. Are you using business funds for these investments? I asked. Claire, it's all connected, building our empire. Our empire. The one I built with my money, my skills, my reputation, and my work. Ethan acted like everything magically became ours just because he existed beside me. And the recordings from that time? Devastating. Phone calls where he talked about using my company to back his personal investments, conversations about protecting himself if our relationship changed, strategy sessions with his lawyer friend about documenting spousal dependence. But the worst one, the one that made my blood turn cold, was a call where he met with potential investors and used my business as collateral for a loan I never approved. Claire Morrison Design is valued at about $2 million. As co-owner and business partner, I can offer it as security. Co-owner? Business partner? Using my company as leverage behind my back. That night, I made copies of every document proving I had built the company alone, with my own inheritance and my own work. I opened a separate bank account and shifted money before he could touch it. When he noticed changes in the finances, I blamed new tax strategies. He nodded, without listening, too wrapped up in his own schemes. Then he said the words that confirmed everything. You know, Claire, I've been thinking about expanding the business. How? Bringing in partners, maybe franchising. Your artistic vision combined with real business expertise could be huge. Real business expertise? Apparently, the woman who built a seven-figure company from scratch wasn't qualified to run her own business anymore. That makes you creative director. The partners can handle the complicated stuff. Operations, finance, strategy. The complicated stuff I'd successfully done for years. That conversation happened on a Tuesday. It was recorded clearly, just like all the others. By Wednesday morning, my decision was final. I needed a divorce attorney. Meeting the attorney. Finding the right lawyer felt like choosing a surgeon, someone who could protect what I'd spent my life building. Sarah Chen came highly recommended. The moment she looked through my documents, I understood why. Before we make a plan, I need your goal. Save the marriage or protect your assets. protect my assets. The marriage ended long ago. He just doesn't know it yet. I laid out 3 years of proof. Business registration showing I founded the company alone. Tax returns from before I met Ethan. Client contracts signed only by me. Bank records showing every initial investment came from my funds. Sarah examined everything carefully. "This is strong documentation of separate property," she said. "But he'll claim the business grew during the marriage, making it community property. Can you prove otherwise?" I pulled out my phone and played key recordings. Ethan's voice filled her office with lies, claiming he turned my hobby into a real business while I handled artistic details. "These recordings are admissible," she confirmed. "How many hours do you have?" "About 40 hours over 18 months. Her eyes widened. "Mrs. Morrison, people usually come in with suspicions. You have enough evidence for more than divorce. You have evidence of fraud." Fraud, embezzlement, unauthorized loans. It hit me like a wave. These weren't just marital issues, they were crimes. What happens now? We file for divorce, block his access to the business, and let him explain to a judge how he thinks he deserves half of something he tried to steal. Serving the papers. The divorce papers were served on a Thursday while Ethan was golfing, using the company credit card, of course. He called 6 times before I answered. "Claire, what is this?" "Divorce papers, Ethan." "But why? We can fix this. We're partners. We're building something together." "Ethan, I've been recording our conversations for the past 18 months. Silence. "Recording what conversations?" he finally whispered. "All of them. Every time you tried to claim my business as yours. Every time you claimed credit for work you didn't do. Every time you spent company money on personal expenses. Every time you called my career a hobby you supposedly transformed into something significant." More silence. Then he said, "Claire, you're being emotional. You're not thinking clearly about what divorce would mean for our business." Our business. Even confronted with clear evidence of his fraud, he couldn't acknowledge the truth. "There is no our business, Ethan. It's my business, which you've been stealing from for 3 years. I haven't stolen anything. I've been building what we have together." "Building what exactly? Name one client you brought in on your own." "That's not how business development works, Claire. You don't understand networking, relationship building, or market positioning. I understand that you've been using my reputation to take credit for my work while contributing nothing but attending meetings and spending my money." The conversation dragged on for 20 more minutes, but I had heard enough. Even caught red-handed, Ethan couldn't acknowledge what he had done. In his mind, marrying me had entitled him to everything I had built. Sarah had warned me about this. Narcissists don't confess. They double down. They attack. They play the victim. Be ready for them to claim you're having a breakdown, that you're manipulated by lawyers, that you're destroying something beautiful out of spite. She was right. Over the next few weeks, Ethan launched a charm offensive. Transparent, desperate, but still manipulative. Flowers delivered to my temporary apartment. Calls to my friends and family painting me as unstable. Social media posts professing love and devotion. But his legal strategy was more aggressive. David Henderson, his attorney friend, filed motions claiming community property laws entitled Ethan to half of everything, including the business I built with separate funds. They claimed he had sacrificed his own career to support mine. Their narrative was breathtaking. According to them, Ethan was the business brain behind Claire Morrison Design, while I only executed creative ideas under his guidance. They argued that because he attended meetings and offered advice, the company was ours. Sarah's response was surgical. She filed countermotions with every piece of evidence proving Claire Morrison Design was founded, funded, and run entirely with my separate property. She included recordings where Ethan admitted he contributed nothing but networking at events I paid for. The centerpiece, a detailed accounting of Ethan's misuse of company funds, personal investments, luxury purchases, and lifestyle expenses with zero business purpose. Your husband's attorney is going to be very surprised when they see this, she said. They have no idea how thoroughly you documented his misconduct. What happens next? I asked. We go to court and let him explain to a judge why he thinks he deserves half of a business he embezzled from. The trial was set 6 weeks later. 6 weeks to prepare for the moment Ethan would finally face the consequences of underestimating me. He still thought he was going to win. That overconfidence would make his downfall even sweeter. Court day. The morning of the trial, I felt calm. Every document organized, every recording labeled, every piece of evidence ready to destroy the lies Ethan had built. I dressed professionally, competent and confident, not emotional, not flashy. Sarah had coached me on presenting as the businesswoman I truly was, not the unstable wife Ethan would try to portray. The courthouse was small, but the courtroom felt enormous. Ethan sat at the plaintiff's table with David Henderson, confident in his expensive suit and lucky tie, the one he'd bought with my money for our first major client presentation. He tried a sad smile when our eyes met. Instead of pity, it reminded me of every lie he'd told, every theft of my work, my money, and my identity. Judge Williams called the court to order. Henderson began his opening statement, calm and practiced. Your Honor, we have a tragic case of vindictive divorce, he said, gesturing toward Ethan. A devoted husband is being denied his rightful share of a business empire built together. Mr. Lawson sacrificed his promising career to support his wife's artistic endeavors, providing the strategic expertise that transformed her small design hobby into a thriving commercial enterprise. Even in court, they refused to acknowledge I had built a successful business before Ethan ever entered my life. According to their story, I was the talent and Ethan was the brains. I created pretty things and he created the business that made them profitable. The evidence will show that Mr. Lawson's contributions entitle him to recognition and compensation that his wife's emotional state has led her to deny. Sarah's opening statement was devastating in its simplicity.